Welcome to the Voice of Bold Business Radio, the show about ways to stay competitive in a changing market, break through business plateaus, and respond to the changing expectations of today's customers. Your host, Jess Dewell, is a rapid growth entrepreneur, consultant, and business advocate with a 20-year track record of business excellence. She candidly discusses how to achieve your growth strategy and realize your company's unfulfilled potential. Now, here's Jess.
Everybody, it's Tuesday, May 14th, and here we are at my favorite time and my favorite day of the week, because this is the Voice of Bold Business live stream day. So you're out there, you're listening, you're watching, you're tuning in from wherever you're at. Use hashtag VBB Radio. We are watching. We will incorporate your questions and your comments into our conversation today. Thank you for being here. You are in the right place for conversations about current needs that we as business leaders face regarding technology, customer expectations, and quickly changing markets. This program is about what it means to reach our short-term goals and increase our confidence in long-term company positioning. This is program 223, What You Didn't Know About Business Credit. And you know, I'm excited about this show because this is an area, if you were to ask me to do anything within your business, I'd be like, yes, come on, I'll be your partner, let's hook arms, I can fill in, unless it has to do with credit. And so I am looking forward to learning as much today as you are and using this as a resource as we continue to build our professional skills to have the success we want within our businesses, within our role with budget accountability. Today with me is Stephen Wible, and he is the Director of Business Development at Credit Suite. He is also a former Marine with a passion for helping small business owners become more fundable. Steve built and sold a $25 million commercial printing business. Utilizing business credit helped him from complete disaster financially when the market crashed. I am so glad to be here and talk with and learn from Steve. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Jess. How are you today?
You know, I am doing so well. Thank you for asking. I've got my tea ready to go. I have my energy level is up. I just had breakfast right before this. I know you're in a different time zone than I am, so it's a little bit different. But I didn't eat Wheaties, but I feel like I ate my Wheaties. How about you?
I get it. That's me all the time. I don't even know what an energy drink is. I don't need it.
You may be the first person that can match me in my energy. So my husband lovingly named me Naturally Caffeinated. And
there you go.
Now we need a bumper sticker because there's two of us.
I know. I always tell people when I'm talking to them, listen, if you remember the old record players, you had your 45s or 70s. I'm like, turn the speed up. If I'm talking, turn it up.
Turn it up. That's right. And everybody who's listening, if you like to listen after the fact and you're listening to this on 1.5 or 2 times the speed, be prepared to stop and pause because it's going to go fast and it's going to be action-packed. And you know, a lot of people don't like to look at credit. I don't know if they're like me, Steve, where it's easier to avoid it than it is to embrace it. But being fundable is such an important part of scaling and preparing to scale. And it also helps position us at which point in time we are looking to shift out to have enact our succession plan, as well as exit and find somebody new who wants to take our business to the next level. And so let's start there. What is a line of credit for those of us who are a little bit of avoiders and to set the stage for the framework we'll be working with for those of us who are more familiar with this topic?
Well, sure. Great. And you asked a couple of really good questions there. I want to back up just a little bit and talk about one of the biggest obstacles that a business owner faces. And like you said, you like to avoid talking about credit. Everyone does exactly the same thing. Matter of fact, what I see most is people will come to us when they need the credit now as opposed to planning for the future, right? So they're looking for it when they need it as opposed to preparing for it so that when it comes time to need it, you've got it. Does that make sense?
It makes complete sense.
Right. So So that's one of the biggest issues we run into. And as you know, SBA statistics show that that over 50% of business owners will be out of business in the first 5 years. And over 80% of them that go out of business is because they didn't have the funding to grow. Because if you're not growing, you're dying, right?
Right.
Right. So look at the cost of living. If you're making the same salary for 10 years straight, you're actually going backwards.
Exactly. Yep.
And business is exactly the same way. Your payroll goes up, your expenses go up, electric bills go up. So you need to increase the revenue, and it's difficult to finance that sometimes. So every business owner at some point in their life cycle of that business will need funding, and that's where we come in. What most people don't understand is that they can get credit that's tied to the business, not to them personally. Now that's a shocker to most people. They go, "What do you mean, not to me personally?" Nobody's going to check your personal credit. Nobody cares who you are. It's all about the business.
So
pretty exciting, right?
It's incredibly exciting. And I know that there's something in there then, right? So as an entrepreneur or somebody who has started a business or somebody who is looking for funding before they even get started so they can find, so they can get a space someplace to put their people and their product and their equipment, someplace that, they can pay to have the lights be on, to be able to get product going, to be able to have those relationships, that upfront marketing that is necessary. They usually do require you to be a personal guarantor at that stage. Are you saying that if we were looking at things a little differently, that we could even avoid some of that? Or are we talking about businesses that are more established and they're breaking through a plateau that they're facing?
And that's the number one thing we hear of misleading information. Oh, well, I don't have an established business. I can't get business credit. That's completely wrong.
Yes.
I could start a business today and build my business credit up so that in 6 to 9 months, I've got $50,000 to $75,000 in credit with zero cash flow. Zero.
Okay, you got to tell us more about that.
That's why I did the silent hanging thing there. I was waiting for you to say something.
I knew it. I was like, but I can't wait anymore.
Yeah.
Come on, spill the beans.
Well, here's the thing, and I give full credit. Look, business credit has been around forever. As a matter of fact, let me give you an example of business credit. People hear business credit, and the first thing they think is line of credit or the bank giving me money. That's not a real definition of what business credit is. Okay, there's funding, and then there's business credit. Business credit is credit that's tied to your EIN, not to you personally. And there's tons of it out there. I mean, absolutely tons. My entire printing company ran on business credit. I'll explain what I mean. If I had to print brochures for someone, let's say it was a $500,000 job, I would buy $200,000 worth of paper. The paper company would give me credit for that and give me X amount of days to pay it back, typically between 30 and 60. I would manufacture the product, sell it to my customer, and I would give them credit. Right? That's business credit, but it gets larger than that and bigger than that. It's not just about vendors. It's all the way up to and through cash, including most people don't know this. Did you know you can buy a car or a truck or a van or whatever you need for your business in the company name, not tied to you personally? They don't even check your personal credit.
That's amazing. And so it actually immediately, right? So I'm listening to you and there's already things going through my brain, right? We're a service business. We don't have hard goods. Yet my brain is already turning about, hey, I didn't realize that was actually my business credit. I didn't realize that this is a way that I could actually use that creatively and strategically to grow, expand, have the influx of cash we need to get through something or to achieve something. And so I'm thinking about a lot of our clients that are in manufacturing, that are in retail, that are in they have rent, they have desks, they have people that they are paying, payroll, all of that. And it sounds like if we were actually just opening our eyes, we'd find it would be like following a trail of pennies to a fountain that spewed pennies.
That's correct. And the issue, and like I was saying, this is not something that we invented. It's been around for a long time. As a matter of fact, I'll give you a classic example. Walmart, who everybody knows who Walmart is the number one purveyor of business credit. You walk into their store, you buy something that's on their shelf, they have that on credit. They didn't pay for it. You pay them, they eventually pay the vendor who supplied that product. Okay, so that's the number one. They're the biggest, and they're the biggest retailer for a reason because they leverage that. But there's more to it than that. I accidentally built my business credit in my bio. I don't know if you mentioned, but I flipped over 300 homes. I owned over 300 rentals. So I was in that whole real estate mess when it crashed.
Right.
And I accidentally, through time, a lot of time, was able to build up huge lines of credit with Home Depot and Lowe's, and I had Visas and MasterCards, and all my vehicles were in the company name. And when the market crashed, I lost everything, like everybody else.
Yeah.
But I walked away with a high personal credit score because none of it was tied to me personally. Now,
Well,
that's
so
a classic example. Excuse me?
I said, I want to talk about that more because I think that's something you had talked about a myth before that it's not available and that we have to be personal guarantors or we have to use our own personal credit to do certain things along the way. Well, okay, that's fine and all. So help us break through that myth. Help us understand what is the first step we should take to look around and see where our pennies are leading us to these piles of credit that we may have so that we know at least what's there. So as we talk, we've got that in our mind.
Absolutely. Okay. And what I'm going to talk about is what we call the credibility steps. Okay. And these are the basics that every business owner should be doing. Everybody who's listening to us today should have, if they haven't already done this, they should look at where they are and go back and correct these items. And they're very simple, easy to do. So if everybody's got a pen and pad, be ready. The first thing we want to do is, and what a lender is going to look at is your name. What's in a name, right? So we believe, and we know, as a matter of fact, that the name of your business can directly affect how much credit you can get. That's a shocker to most people.
Really?
Yep, absolutely. So let's say we were going to start a real estate company today, a real estate investment company. Yeah. So we would put, let's say, Jess and Steve's real estate investment firm.
Sure.
I would immediately tell you, don't do that.
Okay.
Because now you're pegged in a high risk industry.
Because it's my name and your name?
No, because it says real estate investing.
Okay. So it's not the fact that it's your name and my name, it's the industry that we're in.
Exactly. Or at least keep in mind that all business credit, especially in the beginning stages, is all approved through artificial intelligence. Kind of like, and everybody's aware of this and everybody's done this. If you've ever applied for a credit card online, one of two things happen. You get the instant approval and you're all happy, or you get that we'll notify you in the next 30 days of our decision, which you already know what that means. You've been turned down.
Yep.
Now, nobody looked at your application. That was all decided through artificial intelligence, right? Because it's instant.
Yeah.
Right? Same exact thing happens in business credit, especially in the beginning. So it's going to look for certain red flags, certain gates that need to be open. If they're closed, you're going to get an instant denial. And the first one is in the name. So when I talk to somebody who's thinking about opening a trucking industry, I may say they can use transportation. That's fine. They just don't want to put themselves in a situation where it's super high risk. Like you don't want to talk about obviously gambling or guns or pharmaceuticals or things of that nature. And that's real simple. Your name is your name. Mm-hmm. That's not where people get stuck. Where people really get stuck is the next couple of steps. You mind if I go on?
Please. Well, yes, I do. I don't mind. However, I did have a question because here is some, and I'm just going to point this out to our audience. There is some conflicting information here. If we're going for SEO online, we want the real estate investing in our name. If we are going for growth and longevity, we don't want real estate investing in our name. So there's no right or wrong. There's getting what you want for your growth easier or not. So that's like the point I want to put into what I heard you just say. Would you add anything to that, Steve?
Yes, you can have, and I'm looking out my car window and I see an oak tree. You can have Oak Tree Enterprises and then a DBA of Steve and Jess's Real Estate Investing.
Yep.
So your marketing piece can be Steve and Jess's Real Estate Investing, but your corporation or your S Corp or your LLC or whatever is Oak Tree Enterprises. Now, what does Oak Tree Enterprises say?
You're strong. It says nothing about your industry.
Exactly. If I said my business, if I met you today and said, hey, I'm a business owner, my company's called Oak Tree Enterprises, you would have to ask me what I did.
Yes.
You would have to. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what we tell people, especially ones who are just starting out. Now, obviously, we're not saying if you've had a business for 15 years and you're well known to go change your name. That's not what we're telling you to do.
Right.
But when we talk about setting up credibly, I'm talking about maybe you're just starting your business.
Right. Okay, now I'm ready to go to the next ones.
Okay, so the next one is the biggest wall today that people run into, and this is the business phone number. When most business owners start their business, the business phone number, you look at their business card, it's always their cell phone. Always, always, always their cell phone. Because it's convenient. It's the number we give out all the time. It's not like when I started my business where you had to call AT&T and have them put a phone on your wall.
Right.
So they give out their cell phone number. The problem with that is that's an immediate denial. An immediate denial. So then the question is, what's the solution to that, since all we use is our cell phones anymore? Nobody wants to call and have a phone hung on their wall. So what you can get is called a virtual phone number.
I've got two of those.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a Google number?
I do. My office phone number starts out at Google Voice. And I've also in the past used something like Grasshopper, which is it takes your number and it points it to all these different cool places when you're ready to set something bigger on top of your Google number. You
nailed it with part two. The problem is part one, Google owns that number. You can't list that number with the National 411 database because you don't own it. With Grasshopper, you own it, so you can list it with the National 411 database.
Tricky. Okay. And that's actually really important because this is something I didn't know. And so evaluating it, I'm going to be going back. And the next time we're talking about credit and looking for how we want to grow and how we want to fund our next set of projects, and do whatever else we've got going on. I get that this would be an area that for Red Direction, we would change, or we would have to consider changing in the grand scheme of things of the execution, depending on how much credit we were looking for, and did we have enough without changing that?
Exactly. And what you can do is, now a lot of people have these Google numbers, and I say, look, just make that your marketing number, right?
Love it.
But your corporate number is this number we recommend Ring Central, Grasshopper, places like that.
Yeah.
And then you want to list that with the National 411 database. Now, a lot of listeners who are under 30 are going to be like, what is that? If you're old enough to remember picking up the phone in your house and dialing 411 and asking for Joe's Pizza, that's the 411 database. That's the National 411 database. I'm old enough to remember doing it on a dial. So you didn't want to hit 9. It took forever. So that most people don't realize that database still exists today, and lenders, it's the first thing they check. Now, why would they check that?
Okay.
Why would a lender check that? They want to see, are you really in business, or did you just set up, Steve's car driving service out of my basement, and I'm not really in business. It's just kind of, if you ever need me, I'm there and you can pay me. No, they want to know, are you a legitimate business? They're thinking about giving you credit, and the first thing they can check is the National 411 database.
Love it. Okay. That would have never occurred to me. I'm not under 30. I do remember using 411. I had no idea it was tied to strengthening business credit. So this is
exactly.
Yeah. All right.
And neither did I. And remember I told you I accidentally built business credit is because I actually had a landline.
Okay.
So it was naturally listed with but it was in a phone book. And for those of you who don't remember those, they were real thick and yellow and white.
That's right. They didn't serve in our house as phone books. They had other useful tools. They were other useful tools. That's the only thing I miss about phone books is that we always had phone books and we were doing other things with our phone books that were actually useful.
That's awesome. So like I said before I got to the phone number, I said this is where 90% of the business owners trip up, and even you were tripped up on that.
Even me. That's right. Yeah.
Right.
All right.
So take that to heart. So I'm gonna repeat it again for your listeners. You want to go to a company like Ring Central, RING, and then Central.com, or Grasshopper, and there's other ones out there. But you just want to make sure when you speak to them, is this listable with the National 411 database? You want to ask that very specific question, and they will have the answer.
Okay, got it. Okay. Yep.
All right. So now, while we're on that, you don't just want a local phone number. You want an 800 number, and if you're so inclined, a fax number. Now, typically, you can hit press 1 for fax, so you can use the same number for fax. Okay. And of course, I know nobody out there uses faxes anymore. Nobody. It's all digital. However, the more you put on a credit application, the better it is. It's like checking off a list. Check.
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like filling out an employment application, right? When you got nothing to put in there, do you feel good handing that in? No, you want lots on there, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So we're done with the phone number. The next thing, and this is the second killer of most people. So I'm going to start a business tomorrow, and I have a decision to make. I need an email, and you need your email right away. So I'm going to put stevesbusiness@gmail.com. Do you think that's any good?
Never.
Nope. You're right.
Nope. Never.
info@stevesbusiness.com.
Yep. That's right.
All right, good. You knew it. So that's
I
a
did
big
know that.
problem.
And and that's actually something when people still come to me and I'm working with them, they may have 5 employees and they all have Gmail emails. And I'm like, okay, so which problem are we working on? And then it's whatever that problem is, great, but also, hey, here's some other things when you're looking at your marketing budget and some other things, let's do that. And it's good to know that things like that, info@stevesbusiness.com, is incredibly important from a business credit side of things, as much as it is for building credibility with people that come across us, or for our business cards, for our marketing, everything.
Exactly. I mean, I've actually seen I want to be rich at gmail.com. I'm like, you're going to put that on a credit application? Party guy 2018 yahoo.com. So that's important. And it's really, and Gmail has kind of gotten with it. If you notice, you can now get in at your website at Gmail now. Like, for example, Credit Suite is actually Google based. So it's info@creditsuite.com.
So are we.
Right. Okay. So
yeah.
it's really not that difficult. It's still fairly free, I'll call it. And if anybody's using a free service like the Gmails, the Yahoos, the AOLs, God forbid, then they need to go. That needs to be one of the first things they do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Got it.
So the next step to that is, obviously, if you're going to have an info@stevesbusiness.com, I need to have a website that's stevesbusiness.com.
Exactly.
Right? So even if it's I know people don't want to spend a ton of money on websites, but you can buy those one-page websites that are kind of already pre-made, and then go back later and update it to whatever level you want to take it to, but at least get the website operational. Because remember, it's artificial intelligence that's searching for all this, and they're going to see that screen.
Yep. Okay.
Okay.
I'm with you.
All right. So that's basic stuff. And then we can go on further and do things like a business checking account. I am amazed that fully 40% of the business owners I talk to, especially the small business owners, will run everything through their personal checking account.
Now, have you ever seen companies that are like 5 to 10 employees that are still running through personal checking accounts, even though they might be separate? So we might have the business personal checking account, but then we also have
Absolutely. I'm always amazed. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. You're setting yourself up for a disaster on multiple levels. I'm not an accountant nor an attorney, but come on. If you're going to be in business, be in business.
Well,
right?
and exactly. And it takes a little bit more time. And yes, there are other things that have to be done with our individual states and some other things. But you know what? It's still checking the box to help us grow. It allows us to grow faster in a crunch. It allows us to change course faster in any situation when we don't have to fix something we've ignored for so long.
Exactly. So, and I find most people do have a business checking account. And the ones that don't, is fairly simple to open. You go to the existing bank you have and just get them your LLC or your S corporation paperwork. It's not that difficult. And we even teach you how to do that if you don't know how to do that. But
well, just go to your bank. They're awesome. Call them up. Right. What do I need to bring? And I'll be there in 20 minutes with all my stuff. Plan on spending about an hour because there's a lot of paperwork to fill out, but it is worth it. It is worth a half a day to get all of these other benefits. And by the way, I don't ask that question. You know what, Steve? I may start asking that question. So tell me about the structure of your business. What kind of accounts do you have? Because anything that I would help somebody build on, like when people come to you and they want it at the last minute, well, I help people do the planning, so hopefully they're ready for you when they're ready for things like more credit or different kinds of credit to get fundable, to do things after where my expertise stops, right? So there's that piece of it. The point though is if I build anything on top, I'm thinking about this, if I build anything with a company on top of any of these things that you're telling me would prevent business credit from happening, it sounds to me like I'm also, it's like almost like a lost cause, or that it's that thing that you do, but it has this diminishing return immediately.
Right, exactly. Here's the good news. All of this is fixable. Now, there's one more point that I didn't talk about, and I intentionally left it for last, although it's really first.
Well, hang on. So here's what we're going to do. Knowing that it's last right now, but it's really first, we're going to keep everybody in suspense. We're going to take a short break, and then we'll be right back.
The voice of Bold Business Radio gives you insights about how to achieve your company's growth strategy. Use hashtag BBBRadio or email us at radio@reddirection.com to ask questions and share your experiences. Add your voice to the conversation. Together, we define what being an effective leader means today. Special thanks to the Scott Treatment for technical production. Thank you for joining us.
You are listening to Program 223, What You Didn't Know About Business Credit. And I'm talking with Steve Wible, and he is a business credit expert, and he has been in the trenches, and he has not only learned from his mistakes, he accidentally benefited from things he didn't even know were there. And now he helps us, our companies, what we're trying to do, be ready to actually have an easier time getting what we need to do the scaling, to do the growth, to do the new supply chain, whatever it might be in our business. So I have to tell you, he's given us several points, but he's saved the best for last. All right, Steve, bring it on. What is the last today, but really the most important and the one that should come first tip?
And again, this is strictly about your credibility, making sure you can get approved. But the last thing that I want to talk about as far as credibility goes is your address. Now, I brought it up last for two reasons. One, because it tends to it costs money, obviously, to have a business address, right? Everybody's panicking. They go, man, I'm working out of my house. That's what I want to do.
Right.
And two, everybody makes the same mistake when they don't do this properly. They go get a P.O. box because they don't want anybody to know where they live, right?
Okay.
Everybody does that.
Yeah.
That's an automatic and the number one red flag that lenders look at. Nobody wants to lend money to a P.O. box.
Interesting.
Right?
So what about people that are working in like co-working spaces? There's one of them or five of them, and they don't want rent, but they like the concept of a co-working space because it helps them out with whatever their situation is.
I understand.
Are those considered P.O. boxes?
Well, some of them are. So back in the 70s, I'm old enough to remember that, they started this new industry called virtual offices, which is kind of what you're talking about. But these tended to be big, tall glass office buildings, and there'd be a receptionist in the space, and there'd be 50 or 75 small offices in there and shared conference rooms. And they were recognized as P.O. boxes by the SIC codes. They sued, the industry sued and won, and they are now recognized as an actual office space for anyone who rents space from them. So you can rent from a company like Regis or Alliance Virtual Offices, and when you put that address in, you search it, that's a legitimate business address. It gives you instant credibility as opposed to a P.O. box, which makes it look like you're hiding.
Got it.
Make sense?
It makes complete sense.
So now I don't want people to be discouraged because just like in school, you had grades of A, B, C, D, and F. In business credit, addresses have 3 grades, well, 4. You have A, which is a real commercial building. Your building, you own it, you rent it. It's your sign outside. That's an A. That's the best.
Right.
B would be the virtual offices that we're talking about. And then C would be your home address. You can build business credit with your home address. Just the numbers tend to be smaller.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So maybe you get approved for $50,000 out of your house. Might have been $80,000 had you had a commercial office.
And even though, and people are like, oh, wow, that's a lot of money. Yeah. Well, if you think that's a high percentage. So depending on how much you need and how much you feel like you're scrambling, by having all these little boxes checked ahead of time, it's going to help you not only here, it actually positions better when you're planning for exit or succession or things like that as well.
Right, and you can get a virtual office in New York City it might be $500 a month, but I've seen it, in Georgia, suburbs of Atlanta, for $140 a month, $110 a month.
Exactly.
To have a legitimate address. Now, here's where the issue and why I brought it up last.
Okay.
One of the things that the artificial intelligence does is it searches the entire internet quickly, 1/10 of a second, to make sure everything matches everywhere.
Okay.
So where business owners will run into issues is they'll register their business. And they always use their home address because they're just filing their LLC paperwork, right? And then they'll open their business bank account and they'll use maybe their business address.
Right.
And if that doesn't match, instant rejection. So you need to go back and adjust. If you've changed your address, everything with the IRS, the Secretary of State, your bank, your phone number, your website, all addresses must be congruent, as well as your phone numbers. They all have to match. Okay?
Yes, that makes sense.
Okay. So that's the credibility part. And it's really, all of it's very simple. It's just most people just don't think about it, so they don't do it.
Okay, so in Colorado, right? I live in Boulder, Colorado, Steve. And I actually hired a stylist because I moved here and I'm like, I don't dress like anybody here. And when I went to see her, she goes, it's awesome that you don't dress like anybody here because Boulder casual is not going to get you business. And I was like,
right,
okay.
Right.
And so this is what I hear you saying about our business credit. There are things that we do like brush our hair and wash our face and put on deodorant and make sure that we're presentable. That's like level 1. So if you hit some of these steps that Steve has been talking about, it's like that. But when you put on a pair of polished shoes, when you have your bag at least match your shoes, or you're doing something fun like making your socks or your tie or your shirt really bold and different so your personality really comes out, it's all great. That's the dotting the I's with the little hearts for that little extra sense. And I know some people are rolling their eyes at me, but it matters. Presentation matters. Attention to detail matters here. And everything you shared is not hard. In the grand scheme of things, it takes very little time, yet most people don't do it, and they are leaving money on the table because of it.
Absolutely. And the way I turn it around to a small business owner who will say, hey, listen, I don't feel like I'm not big enough to have all this. I don't think it really makes sense. They know I'm a small business. I say, okay, let's say Walmart decided to buy your product. And
right.
they said, and you said, I need a credit application. They sent in a credit application. It was Walmart Incorporated. It was out of Arkansas. And then the email was walmartpurchasing@yahoo.com. And then the phone number was the purchasing agent's cell phone. And there was no fax. And
I would think you were phishing. I would think that this was not real. I would be afraid that my identity was at risk here.
You got it. Exactly the same thing. Exactly the same thing. It looks like it's fraudulent.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's really, when we say credibility, it's not that your business isn't credible. We're just making you look credible to the lender or creditor so that they don't think you're stealing, for lack of a better word.
So we had a question come in from Clark. Thank you, Clark, for using hashtag VBB Radio. He said, how can I create a strong business credit profile? Well, guess what? Pause, hit that backward 30-second button a few times, or if you're on your computer and you're watching or listening from your computer, drag your little scroll bar back about 10 minutes because Steve is giving them all to us. So follow that step by step. So thank you for using hashtag VBB Radio. We just got that in now, and I know you sent it as we were starting, so I wanted to make sure we got your question on air. Another one, here's one, Steve, from May. She says, when we talk about business credit, it's always how to use the credit best and get the most of it. But eventually we have to pay it back. So can you help us out? And so I'm going to take the next part. She says, what are some insider steps to help get it paid back? And I guess I would say, what would be some, I want to add to this, what would be some risk factors of weighing when business credit is the right thing to do and use and go after?
That's a great question. I'm going to give you an example. Certainly, as with any credit, you want to manage it responsibly, right? You wouldn't borrow $100,000 personally if you didn't have a job, right? You have no income. There's no way to pay it back. So you want to be responsible. What I like to tell people to do is, look, first things first. The toughest part of a business, any business, and I started off this small printing company built to $25 million, and there was always cash flow issues. Any business is going to no. It would be nice if you're doing $1.2 million and it's every month $100,000, right? Doesn't work that way.
It does not work that way. Sometimes it's 20,000.
Right, 200,000, 75,000, 300.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work that way. So you have to learn to manage cash flow. Well, what's great about business credit is you can utilize much larger companies to help you manage that cash flow. And I'll give you an example that's easy to follow.
Sweet.
So one of the biggest issues with truck drivers is their expense, right? Independent truck drivers, they have a truck, and they're always fronting all this fuel, right? Think about it. Typically, a truck driver will spend around between $5,000 and $10,000 a month on fuel and maintenance on that vehicle. That's a heavy expense when they're probably only doing $15,000 to $25,000 in revenue, right? So a huge percentage of the revenue goes to fuel and maintenance, tires, things like that. So what's out there for truckers, if they have good business credit, are these fleet credit cards. And I'll give you just one example of one person that I helped. It's somebody who was in business 2 months. I showed them how to do this. They started to go through our program, and he got approved with a company called Pilot Flying J. And your listeners, if they've ever traveled across the country in the interstate,
I've seen those.
Yep, you got it. They're big truck stops. He got $50,000 in credit from Pilot Flying J. $50,000, roughly 10 months of his fuel expense. So now he had a choice to make. Well, do I just use that 50 grand, keep the cash flow? What he did, he was smart. He let them finance his fuel for roughly 7 months, took the extra cash instead of paying them. He was just giving them the minimums and bought a second truck. So technically, Pilot Flying J financed his second vehicle, because the problem with truckers is never getting enough loads. It's getting another vehicle.
Right.
They have to get another vehicle so they can double the revenue. He doubled his revenue within 9 months by building his business credit. By his second month, he was approved. Then with the double the trucks, he brought in double the revenue. He's able to pay down that Pilot Flying J. He actually got an expanded credit line and just kept on growing. And I saw one trucking company take this to $1.4 million in credit, in business credit.
I'm going to share something with you. You might laugh at me. My very first business was a very good, amazing success. And we ran it on cash basis. And I know we left money on the table. And I know there were things we could have done differently. Hindsight being 2020, I was 21 years old. Actually, at the time, I guess it was between 19 and 21 when all this was going down, 19 years old and 21 years old when all this was happening and growing so fast. We didn't know any better. So we used what we learned from our allowance that we got as kids, the jobs that we had in high school, and figured, well, if that's how money works, here's how we're going to run our business. And like you, we accidentally did a great thing, and we were in the right place at the right time. We had all the right pieces, and it was a phenomenal success, and we exited well, and most of us stayed with the acquiring company. Now, that said, everybody in the business that acquired us, they couldn't figure out how we were running so much revenue on a cash basis. And they had no idea that they had never seen anything like that. And I was like, well, I guess it's doable. But when we put our money to work, I think this is where I'm going. When we put the money that we have access to work, we're able to free up and have the cash flow we need for any ups and downs in revenue, since it's not always consistent, even though that's what we strive for. And the other thing is, it also allows us to take advantage of opportunities quicker, because sometimes opportunities have a very finite window. Like buying a second truck. I would say, having built up that credit, there was probably a small period of time when that trucker, in your previous example, could have actually bought the truck, or then ended up going, well, I guess I just have to pay down this credit again. And so being aware, I'm thinking of soft skills here, right? These thinking, problem solving, decision making soft skills that we may not feel comfortable with money. We may want to avoid money in our business. We may be like, yep, that's our CFO, that's our bookkeeper, this is accounts payable, and we're just going to look at the reports and call it what it is. But not only are we missing the boat, we actually know more than we think we do, because we have the soft skills to make the right decisions if we would just look.
Well, and that's it. And this is really, building business credit isn't about just borrowing money. Matter of fact, it's not even about borrowing money.
Right.
What it's really about is, I love when I hear people say, wow, that person built their company to X, man, they must have some great opportunities. We all get those opportunities. It's, were you prepared for it when it showed up on your doorstep? And if you're not prepared because you didn't have the cash available or the credit available, you may have missed out on an opportunity to make an extra 6 figures this year, or 7 figures even, because you missed that opportunity because you didn't have the funds. Right? So you weren't prepared. So when people come to us and say, look, I need a loan right now, I want to get in the business credit name. I go, well, where were you 6, 7, 8, 9 months ago where you could have built your business credit? You weren't preparing for the opportunity that's now in front of you.
So what's the soft skill that you think that we need the most to really think about this concept of being prepared to take advantage of opportunity?
Well, if I may be so bold.
Please do it.
You never want to look for money when you need it. You want to look and be prepared to get the money before you need it. That is the number one skill set that most business owners don't do, because we're reactors. We tend to react. Customer calls, they're angry. We're dealing with an anger. We have an order, it's on back order. We have to deal with it. We're all reactors, right? You may plan your business out, but you need to plan for the negatives and or the opportunities, right? So, maybe you had a bad month. You need to make sure you have enough cash, you have enough credit to survive into the following month, right? I've seen more business owners go out of business just because they had to dig into their own pocket to survive.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Your money should be your money and should stay there. Separate yourself from the business. Run the business like you run your household, right? Mm-hmm. Make sure you're controlling your cash flow. And the best way to do that is to have credit. Now, you run your business on a cash basis, and that's great if your profit levels are super high.
Right.
Or nobody's taking money out.
That's right. That's exactly right. They were incredibly high profit margins. And our growth was double digit month to month. So that was pretty stinking amazing across an entire quarter. So yes, and that's the thing. We accidentally had a good experience. Had it gone any other way, or if we had made any decision slightly differently, we could have had a very different outcome. And like I said, hindsight being 20/20, I get that. And how lucky were we? But not many of us get past cash basis. And this is a great way to start. We think we understand and we know it. Now, I heard you say anticipation, Steve. When you were talking about planning for what you don't need, so you can jump and take opportunity, that is a type of anticipation. That is also risk assessment in there. And we do it when we decide if we're going to go, what hotel we stay at when we go on vacation. Are we going to fly first class or not first class to get to our destination for our vacation? What are we going to do day to day to put money aside or to figure out how to increase our credit, to put it all on credit cards? Whatever our approach is, we do those things. We have that risk assessment. We have that planning and anticipation for those things. And it's just as easy to turn it to equipment, goods, where do we need to keep the stuff, production and saving it somewhere in a warehouse, things like that. And I think, I don't know what the big hang up is between the two, but it's the same thing, with different stuff.
Well, ironically, my favorite thing to ask a business owner when they call is, so how do you see your sales next year? Oh, I'm planning on growing 30%. Wonderful. How are you getting there? Do you have a plan for that?
Yeah.
And once I ask that question, they almost always stop. So you don't know how you're going to gain. But let's assume you're right and you grow 30%. How are you financing that?
Exactly.
Because you're going to have to finance it. Nobody's paying you cash up front for anything you're doing. It almost never happens, right?
That's right.
So you have to plan for that. And I hear this a lot. Well, I'm going to get an SBA loan. Wonderful. Do you know what the SBA looks at? No, my personal credit, I think. Oh, they do. They will look at your personal credit. However, what you didn't know was the first thing they look at is your business credit profile.
Yep.
They look and see how many trade lines you have reporting. Do you have an 80 Paydex score? Do you have a 92 Experian business score?
Yep.
Most people don't even know that. Now, let's say you have none of that. Doesn't mean you won't get approved, but now they're going to put the magnifying glass on you personally. Because your business has nothing. It doesn't show anything, has no profile. It's as far as they're concerned, it's just an idea, right?
Yep.
But if they look and they see those high credit scores for the business, they see 20, 30 trade lines, that's a lot of weight. Now, let's say you're a little dinged up personally. That's okay, because we've got this that we can hang our hat on.
Right.
So that's something most people don't think about. And there's another item most people don't think about. If you, as a business owner, plan on doing any business with a government entity above the county level, you better have a strong D&B profile, because that's the first thing they're going to pull. Do you pay your bills? That tells them whether your business pays their bills.
Huge. Okay, so here, might be a great place for a question from Noah. Noah is asking, well, he's saying first, my credit is what it is. Next, he is saying, can you give me words of wisdom about how do I go and find where this credit can be?
Absolutely. Without giving away the secrets as far as the order goes, I can tell you. So
come talk to you is what I hear. First and foremost, go talk to Steve.
Well, we're givers if we're anything else, our company.
Sure.
And if you go to YouTube channel and look up Credit Suite, that's SUITE, look over, there's 4,000 videos there, including starter vendors. Okay.
Wow, okay.
So our CEO, Ty Crandall, is an absolute giver. Matter of fact, sometimes to a fault, I keep telling him, stop. You're giving away the store. But he loves doing it. He loves helping small business owners. So we do give you at least between 3 and 5 of those starter vendors. If you're ready to get started. If you want more information, you can contact us. Is this okay if I give this out, our email?
Please.
Okay, it's info, like I said, info@creditsuite.com. And you can mention that you heard us on Jess's podcast, and we'll make sure you get to the right person. But we're happy to help business owners, at least with the starting point, get everything set up properly. And then if you're interested in taking it to the next level, just talk to one of our reps and they'll show you how to get to the next level.
So I want to switch gears. Thank you, by the way, Steve. I want to switch gears because, we've been talking about things that saying, hey, if you haven't done this, it's really easy to do right now, because right now is when we're planning for the future. And that's one of the things that the Voice of Bold Business is all about, is what are we doing today that helps us with our long-term positioning? That could be marketing, that could be sales, that could be business revenue, that could be expansion to a new plant, more equipment, whatever it is, but it's that future. And so, let some of us that are listening, and Red Direction is 14 years old now, maybe 15. I may have not carried the one over in April, but right around there. We're almost to driving age. And, I know that there are things that still, we already found in this conversation, I could do. But what else? What are some other changes for established businesses that will allow us to become more lendable and fundable?
Well, the first thing I would suggest, just like with your personal credit, there's no way to work on your personal credit if you don't know what's on there, right?
Yep.
So contact us and we'll get you a copy of, remember, we'll even give your listeners 30 days free of business credit monitoring so they can look at what's on their business credit. Now, I will tell you, 90% of the people who reach out to us are going to have nothing. And they're going to have nothing for 2 reasons. 1, they're not doing business with anybody who reports. Or 2, they're not set up credibly, so nothing will report.
Okay. Yep.
All right. That's the first thing you do. If you don't know where your starting point is, how do you know how to get to the end? You don't even know where you're starting.
Got it.
So that's the first thing I would do, is I would check to make sure if anything was reporting. God forbid there's something reporting negative. Not a catastrophe. We can show you how to remove that.
Okay.
All right. So that's the first thing I would do. The second thing I would do is I would absolutely go through those credibility steps that we discussed. Those 5 ultra important things. If you've got that done, you're 50% through the battle.
Ha-ha! This hasn't been hard so far.
Right. The rest of it is simply, it's funny, one of the biggest objections I hear on people going through our program is, man, this is going to take me a lot of time. And I always answer the same way. How long does it take you to fill out a credit application? 5 minutes?
Right.
10 maybe? Right? Okay.
Right.
So you fill out the credit application, you're approved, you get credit with XYZ company, and you use it. Even once. Just once. How long did that really take you? An hour? Right? You go online, order from them, use your credit card, use that credit that you're approved for, and you're finished.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously you're going to pay the bill. It takes almost no time. What it takes is focus.
Ooh, that's a good word. I love that word.
Right?
Focus.
So you need to focus on the objection. start with the end result. I'm a big fan of breaking things down from the top, right? Where do I want to go? Okay, I want to get here. So how do I get there? And I go backwards.
Yep.
And get to where I am now. Okay, so now that I've got it all built, I'm at step one. I need to get to step two. And that's what's great about our program. We've taken 3 to 5 years and turned it into 6 to 9 months, sometimes even quicker.
Mm-hmm.
So we're an education company. That's really what we are. People say, oh, you're a credit company. Not really. I mean, we help people get loans, and we certainly are happy to do that, but we really want to educate them. We want to give them the secrets that the banks won't tell them, which is awesome. We even give people underwriting criteria. So how many people that apply for a credit card have no idea if they're going to get approved? None whatsoever, right? Because they're borderline credit, maybe they're 640. With us, if you apply for credit, you already know before you apply. How is that for powerful? How's that for bold?
It is bold, which leads me into my very last question. What sum this up? What makes it bold to actively take action to become fundable?
Well, action was the key, right? So what makes that bold is that, again, over 50% of businesses will go out of business in the first 5 years. Take yourself out of that 50%, move yourself into that 40%, 45%. Matter of fact, move yourself into the 5% that actually utilize this. That's unheard of. I can literally get out of my car, walk into that strip mall that I'm looking at right now, ask every single person there about their business credit report, and I guarantee you 100% will say, I don't know what you're talking about. all the business owners, they'll have no idea. And then they'll say, their next thing will be like, well, I'd love to get some money so I can expand.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Exactly.
It's kind of like saying, I really want to get a mortgage, but man, I have no idea if I have credit or not. Well, you need to find out, and you need to understand if you don't, why. So that's a bold step. But once you've done it, that's the great part about this. Once you've done it, it's easy. It's done. Now you're done. You're set up properly. Now it's a matter of just scaling. And here's where it gets really cool. You get anybody who has excellent credit out there in your listening audience, high 6s, mid 7s, high 7s, they probably go to their mailbox daily with some sort of loan offer. Credit card, line of credit, personal loan. There's always an offer in the mail. And I always ask people the same question. How do they know to send you that offer? They didn't send me that offer. They sent it to you. Why is that? And they always answer the same way. Well, my information was sold by the credit reporting agencies. Exactly. Not personally, but they said, hey, we want to buy a list of people between, let's say, 700 and 800 credit score in this zip code. And you're on the list. Don't you think the same thing happens for businesses? Business lenders want to lend money. That's their job. They have to find borrowers. The best way to find them is to buy the information from the credit reporting agencies.
That's right.
So the tide turns. Now, instead of you looking for money, money looks for you. How's that for bold?
You heard it here. This is Steve Wible. And you know what? This is program 223, What You Didn't Know About Business Credit. You'll find all the program notes at voiceofboldbusiness.com/P223. That is voiceofboldbusiness.com/P for program 223. You can also search the site for Steve Wible's name as well. Okay, you're listening, you're here. Don't go away just yet. Rate this program. Talk to us. iTunes, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, YouTube, you name it. You already know where you're listening. Give us a rating. And use hashtag VBB Radio to keep this conversation going. It's what you do. It's what I do. It's what Steve does. It's our collective experiences that we are sharing here about how to be an effective leader today that achieves the growth and the success you want within your role and within your business. So use this information for your own practical application. Get going. I know I am. And learn to leverage debt and your business credit.
The Voice of Bold Business Radio gives you insights about how to achieve your company's growth strategy. Use hashtag VBB Radio or email us at radio@reddirection.com to ask questions and share your experiences. Add your voice to the conversation. Together, we define what being an effective leader means today. Special thanks to the Scott Treatment for technical production. Thank you for joining us.